My name is Ronnie Boesing. I'm the CEO and founder of OpenLedger. I started in this business back in 2014 together with my partner, Nikolai. And we basically moved on from there in 2014 with initially a Bitcoin exchange, and then entered into the point where we moved with a new name of the company to OpenLedger, October 13th, 2015. Initially, you could say that when we started out, we had the idea to begin or to offer an exchange as such. We followed then the trend and realized that the best way to reach the maximum amount of people around the world would be entering and using a decentralized trading platform as our base for these activities. And at the point, back in 2015, we found BitShares, the ecosystem and the community, to support and deliver what we were thinking and expecting from the future. With that in mind, we then moved on and created gateways to this decentralized trading engine that BitShares blockchain is providing. And I guess from the early stage, it was all a question of saying, how can we produce and deliver businesses in future, having a decentralized trading platform as our foundation for all of this? This was really from the early 2015, the idea of presenting and delivering a decentralized conglomerate of ecosystems using that platform. When we moved on forward or onwards, we used the facilities and the ideas that were at hand at that time. ICOs was still a very early stage. We introduced our own token called OBITs, which was very much a token representing the growth and the activities of OpenLedger as a whole. The majority of the fees generated was from these gateways that we had created. We started off with the main ones, Bitcoin, Litecoin, etc. And at the moment, we have something like 60 plus gateways fully active, all in what you call auto mode, allowing people in reality to use our gateway services and push Bitcoin or Ethereum to arrive to their respective wallets, core wallets of those blockchains, in less time than it would normally take for you to actually transfer to any normal exchange. So we're talking a few minutes rather than the normal idea of 15 minutes, etc. As we went on and had this trading platform as foundation, we also started offering ICO services in connection to this. We implemented a escrow structure, advisory part of this as well, where we went in and actually helped the projects realize if they actually had a product worthwhile or not. And I think this is one of the most important things that we've continued to emphasize in all these years since 2015, is actually we've only taken on projects where we've been able to go in and really decipher and decide whether it has a future. So one of the most important things that you would be able to decide whether it has a future or not would be if they come up with which kind of technology they want to use to support the project itself. I think a lot of ICOs in 2017, when you had the boom, a lot of them were based on Ethereum, and a lot of them were coming out with an idea only and a white paper, but they actually had no idea on how they were going to continue that afterwards. I think it's clear that any cryptocurrencies or assets, I mean, the majority of the so-called cryptocurrencies out there, they would be defined as assets, bottom line, as most of them are created out of Ethereum platform. So Ethereum itself may well be a cryptocurrency, the ETH, but the rest, they're all assets created on a platform like that. On the BitShares ecosystem, one of the reasons why I entered and enjoy actually building on that is because they came out with a stablecoin from the very beginning. A stablecoin backed by the core currency of the blockchain itself. Something that I think anybody out there could learn from, that only by using the ecosystem itself or the resources of the ecosystem itself will it be possible in future to really use any of these cryptocurrencies for a useful purpose. And I think BitShares is a blockchain where the trading engine is such a vital part of it. It's, the intention was really to say, what does the world need in future? It needs a financial trading platform and an ecosystem to support it. Anything else is really not important if this one does not exist. I think that the moment you are able to reach out to any countries worldwide and allow people, no matter the amount of funds that they have or not, to actually start interacting without a bank even. I mean, that's the time when you will make it possible even for the small guys to start enjoying the crypto economy also. And I think a blockchain structure like BitShares, where it's what you call a decentralized proof of stake, or a distributed proof of stake actually, it will allow you to constantly maintain a low cost of transactions. Unlike Bitcoin and Ethereum, where the success in reality is the Achilles of both of these blockchains, and in so many ways, so many other blockchains out there, because they are not able to scale. And of course, and both Bitcoin and Ethereum are doing a lot of stuff in the last years, where they've either been doing forks or to improve that facility. I mean, to improve the speed. When it comes to Bitcoin, they did all these forks, and they have Bitcoin Dash, Bitcoin Cash as one of them. The Lightning Network is the newest and perhaps the most promising part of how you can actually allow using Bitcoin and still scale. And in Ethereum, you still have all this general work of securing the back end from attacks, as well as the scalability. A platform like Ethereum, where it's built for the developers, and essentially the developers are not able to send funds in and out without having a huge cost every single time. That's of course not good for the future growth of an ecosystem. So I think also we will see in future a lot of these distributed proof of stake, places where you are able, together with block producers or witnesses, they might also be called, and a committee of elected people from the community, to then adjust as we go and ensure that that the cost of each of these transactions are adjusted according to demand. So, taking you back to any kind of normal business principle, I mean, business and demand, or supply and demand, will decide the future of a platform. And the BitShares is based on a financial trading engine that allows businesses to enter and then enjoy the growth based on the supply and demand. So I think, taking you back to the question on is there any future on the cryptocurrencies or not, I think it's really a question of finding these types of blockchains that are built not only for the moment, but also built for the future. And BitShares is definitely one of them. EOS as the newest one, both of them created by Daniel Larimer. It has also a great amount of future. It still has what is still missing is the governance part, which is still not really in control or the presented the right way. It's clear, and I guess when it comes to that, it takes you back to the people behind. I mean, once you start involving and dealing with people as a part of a blockchain structure, you are dealing with a matter which is very delicate. Yeah, I mean, you can never say from the very beginning this is a sure thing, because it really depends on initially also who are the people who managed to get in first. Did they actually enter with the idea of giving back to the world and of course making money in the same time? Or did they do it purely for profit? I mean, are they ready to vote for things to happen, or are they just sleeping partners in this system? And the worst thing you can have in a blockchain is of course to have the majority of the voters as sleeping partners. That is like a lethal thing, or lethal, well, a negative thing, yeah. Lethal combination, yes. I think that at least my own vision of involving governments would be that you create an ecosystem where every single country in the world could potentially become a node of this ecosystem and this blockchain. And you allow, similar to the way you've done with the UN, you give everybody one vote to support the system. And then you build these layers under the operating parties that will help build the ecosystem. And of course, there are people and countries from all of these involved parties who has a bigger interest than others to take part. And they should also benefit then more than the rest. So essentially it's like I mean, it's clear that you do need to have the governments involved in order to really have a fully functional ecosystem. But it's also important that you have governments involved where you can ensure that a corrupt government is not the one telling the agenda of that ecosystem. So you need this kind of decentralized infrastructure where everybody involved have a vote, and you are also able to see the activities on the blockchain. I mean, after all, one of the things that I consider as a very important part of the blockchain is to avoid future corruption. And I mean, there's a lot of countries out there who over and over and over again are being caught with their hands in the what is it, cookie jar, yeah? And how can we avoid this? Is I think to have this kind of mutual ecosystem where all the governments are involved, but in the same time we are each the watchdog of the other, and giving back to the whole world by actually offering them an ecosystem where you are then internally, based on some initial compliance structure, able to say to a normal user, you are now able to build your own dApp in this ecosystem. And of course, what comes out of it, you may create your own little private dApp here, but we do know who you are. So you either have to follow the rules and principles, or you of course have to stay out of this. But each user are in control of their own activities in this way. I think that governments are not, personally I think that it's not possible in future to avoid governments if you really want to have an ecosystem that functions in full. People who are thinking it's possible without, it's a great ideology in some parts, but it's a bit naive ideology. And I think essentially we all want to be sure that what we do with our lives is also appreciated and awarded. And we don't want somebody who is in the top just sitting there and taking 80% of whatever kind of earnings are coming in. We actually want to benefit from it all of us. And that's my life philosophy also, that whatever I'm building here, I'm building towards an end solution that allows people around the world to enjoy and to use it. And by actually giving in this way, I also know that I'm able to get back. So I give and then I receive, rather than just take and say, forget about it. And we see that from various places. I mean, I just mentioned governments, but I mean, you can just go back and look at the ICOs from last year. I mean, yes, there are great projects out there, but there's also a lot of projects which has been created purely for the idea of using the system and benefiting from the poverty or the people who are believing in this great chance of taking part of something big, just because people have enough money to actually go out there in the media and say, this is great, I know what I'm doing, and come and support me with your millions. And afterwards, it's realized that in fact, these guys, they did not even think about what kind of technology to use, but they were very good with words and persuasion initially. I've seen it with even legal aspects, I mean legal advisory, to come in and actually say, yes, we support this project. And later on, it turns out actually that they actually signed up just because they knew the people supporting the project, yeah? So again, you don't really know what you're doing, but you're doing it because somebody else tells you it's good. In cases, I mean, we have ourselves experienced bad apples. And we've, in one case, with a bad apple, we were so fortunate that we were involved partly, and where our involvement happened on the decks that we operate. So we were actually able to return the funds to the ones who were supporting through our system. The rest of the people, they lost their funds. That way, in general, is how we are trying to ensure at least that if people support a project, we have a hands-on until the delivery of the projects. So in general, we go in, we do our due diligence, we are feeling very comfortable about accepting this project. We have thought of the blockchain technology behind. We've even in cases been doing specific checkups on that blockchain technology that they do. And we are able to do that on our experienced team of plus 50 programmers from our own offices. That's a way, that's a deeper compliance and due diligence than normally you would consider and think of. That when you go in and consider an ICO, you don't only consider the white paper and the people behind, but you also consider the technology they bring. And if you are actually able to go in and check that, you have quite a nice overall understanding of this ICO, and then I'm able to say, I sign up for this as advisory. So one went bad in the way where we were partly involved. Another one where basically where we loved the idea, we loved the concept. Throughout the time after an ICO had happened, it turned out that the most important or a very vital part of it, the project management of this project, it did not really follow the directions and the indications from the beginning. And essentially, we had to pull out of that again and return the funds. In this specific case, we actually did it even from our own funds because we had supported also the team and behind. But we realized at one point when they were halfways that they would never be able to fulfill and complete the product. And funds had been spent, but spent in vain, so to speak. So we returned really the funds to the users and were able to say, okay, lessons learned again. And I guess this is where we are with all of this cryptocurrency, blockchain development, ICO, etc. It's all learning by doing at the moment. It's like a no man's land that you enter. And if you are a pioneer, you have to accept that there are times where you need to pull out, accept your loss, just as any other kind of, even a business, a Wall Street broker is in these similar situations at times, yeah? He enters and he realizes in the middle of the product or the launch or the duration of this company moving forward, that it's actually turning out bad. So he has to kind of cut his losses and then just move out and move on to a new one. And I think that's what we all, we probably have a problem in that. We've had a problem with that in 2018. Imagine 2017, everybody was thinking, wow, this is just gonna, when it's gonna end, I mean, we don't know. It's gonna be, just gonna continue all the way up. So even the people who went in there and put some funds in projects and believed in the future, it's very hard then in 2018 to see that the majority of everything out there dropped something between 10 and 20 when it comes to ICOs in general. I mean the tokens related to the ICOs. And the higher end or the more established blockchains, they actually managed to, you know, to stay at a lower loss, so to speak, like Bitcoin. Bitcoin is probably one of the few out there which actually at this moment are at the same value as it was in the same time last year. So in 2017, in the middle of October, we see something like $6,300 worth of Bitcoin. Right now it's 6,500. Dash, Ethereum, which ones was it also? At least Dash and Ethereum, which were well established at that time, they are 1/3 of the value right now than they were last year. Another token like BitShares is actually double from last year. What does that tell me? I mean, yes, then you see, in the case of BitShares, you actually saw that token or that currency, or sorry, it's not BitShares, we call it BTS, yeah? So the currency itself is BTS. That went from 0.5 last year, and it went up to 95 cents within 3 months after that, from October. And then it dropped now to 10 cents, but still, it's double than what it was at this time last year. I mean, I think I covered that even earlier when I said that the first really established stablecoin existing was from BitShares blockchain technology. Yes, but the thing is that here we are talking about a crypto-backed stablecoin. So the ecosystem itself is in a way the stabilizer of that stablecoin. The success of the ecosystem is making it possible to make this stablecoin really interesting. And obviously the core currency will always be volatile, but the stablecoin itself, since it's pegged initially at the moment to whether you want to, it's pegged to the US dollar, to the euro, to the Chinese yuan, etc. But it's backed by the core currency itself. So I think that's probably the only way you are able to secure a currency for the future. I'm not saying that the initial approach from the blockchain of BitShares is exactly the perfect way right now, but it's definitely the best. I consider it's the best way of a stablecoin right now of anyone out there, because we're talking about 50, I read something like 50 stablecoins created in the last 3 months or something, and they're all based on what you would normally call a fiat-backed coin or token, and all of them, they might as well just stay in the exchanges. I mean, when you have a centralized exchange and you have a license or whatever kind of agreement domestically in that country, I mean, it might be for various reasons you might not need a license in that country. There are some few of those still. You are creating an asset on that exchange representing the fiat value, and that asset is then supposed to be backed by equivalent amount in a bank. This kind of type is exactly what everybody is creating right now, but the difference is that they're then saying, okay, let's share that same asset to the other exchanges. And I mean, then you start, isn't that kind of creating unnecessary confusion even? I mean, why not just say every single exchange out there, they are able to create the asset on their exchange and let the bank, then the people or the users, you could say, well, at least we know if we trust this exchange, then we also know that this guy or this exchange has the equivalent amount in their bank. But they don't start sharing it to other exchanges also, like they did and have done with Tether. US dollar Tether is a typical example where you're actually escalating and unnecessarily putting out a token which may or may not have a backed value out there. And right now we see the aftermath. We saw, a few days ago where Tether went down to 82 cents. And I don't know if it's stabilized still, but it was at least 2 days ago 96 cents. And even 4 cents, it's like $300 or $400 million that are out there questionable at the moment. And we don't want that. I think that any kind of business out there, or rather an ecosystem, ecosystem based on a blockchain, would normally need this kind of support in order for a quicker growth, so to speak, adding some interest from outside. So institutional investors into a blockchain economy is and should be always welcome. I think I guess that's basically the answer here. I guess it depends really on the kind of blockchain structure you wanna build. You are initially, I guess there's a reason why at the moment it is not governments, it's not institutional investors, etc., who manage to put their hands on bigger stakes of a blockchain so far. It's people who have, for whatever reasons, an ideology that they wish to, work further on. I think that this is perhaps why we are not yet seeing that second or third wave of all of this yet, because there will be a governance structure of a future blockchain technology which will allow both these governmental supported institutional investors as well as the people around the world to join, and each of them have not a massive vote just because of a massive amount of tokens, but they will actually be given the votes based on reputation, based on their involvement, taking us back to those sleeping players there. We do not want to, we want the money of the sleeping partners, but we do not want them to be actively a part of the ecosystem's growth and well-being, because that is obviously not good. So one could eventually see 90% of a blockchain supported by sleeping partners and 10% by actually active voters, and they will also be the ones actually signing the future of that blockchain. And the institutional investors would maybe generally say, well, we don't care, we don't mind as such that these 10% are running this game as long as we make money. In the end, for them, and maybe even the governments, it's all a question of making enough money to support whatever budgets you have, government-wise or institutional investors, to continue being who you are and doing what you do. I think I wanted to add one thing which I'm still playing at, where when I say about giving back to the world, I mean, personally, I would love to be in a situation where I could say, go out to governments and say, look, I have a great blockchain technology and idea of how to bring you guys into this whole sphere. You are able to have a part in controlling this, and in the end, we are able to produce enough results to increase the well-being of the most, exposed people in society. And I'm speaking about the young ones and the oldest ones. So that's, the vision from my side, and even my ideology is really to build on the base of my own company here and on the base of technologies that we're actually in the middle of developing, to actually come out with something that allows us to say, we didn't just help us, but we helped the world by helping us, yeah? And by giving, we then receive, and we are able to even scale internally on the base of the people we hire. And then, like our slogan is, yeah? We are blockchain-powered, people-driven. That's what OpenLedger is all about.